All right. I'd like to call to order the Policy Committee of the Nashua Board of Education. I'm calling this meeting to order a little bit late at 6:43 p.m. We have committee members. We have alternate Ms. Timmons, who is joining us.
Here.
She's here to make a quorum with myself. We also have joining us Ms. Porter from the Board of Education, and we have Ms. Fitzpatrick. We also have on the phone, we have Ms. Van Twyver. Are you here?
Yes.
Can you hear us? Okay, and she's joining us by phone. She's going to be part of this committee. Are you by yourself?
I am.
Okay, thank you. And we also have Mr. Mosher, who is joining us by phone. Are you by yourself, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. One more piece of business, we have to turn the recorder on. So, can you do that for me? I'll see if I can do it. 1 minute. Okay. We've recorded. We're starting the recorder. Okay. So, our first order of business is going to be proposed K1, policy KI, I'm sorry, visitors to the school. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Actually, this policy was in the packet for last month, but because the meeting ran late, we weren't able to get to it. So this was the proposed policy that was done when Ms. Raymond was the head of the policy committee. And so I know that in speaking with Ms. Timmons, she's got a few suggestions for some language change, but generally I think that the policy is acceptable and it updates our expectations around visitors to school. And along with that is rescinding the old school visit policy, which is on the back side of this.
I have some questions too.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Van Twyver.
Sorry for me to speak?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, there seems to be a change in policy here from having to notify the principal when you come to the school. I don't know whether that's that must be the way the administration wants it. But I had a question about down on the 4th paragraph. It says visitors must sign in at the principal's office or security office. By the principal's office, you mean the main school office?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And this, the signing in piece and checking in with the principal is actually on the old policy number 4, where it says visitors must sign in at the principal's office and will be provided with a visitor's badge. So it's in the previous policy as well.
Okay, but you mean the main school office. You don't mean the actual principal's office.
Correct.
Okay. So the other thing is that about the visitors' badges, will BOE members have to wear this visitor's badge, or is their badge enough?
Ms. Porter, do you want to answer that? Do you have a...
I think that if we have our school badges, we can wear those. I think it's just you have to have one badge or the other. Whenever I go to any schools or to central office, I wear the one that was given to me. So that should be fine, I would think.
Did that answer your question?
I didn't quite hear her. I think something needs to be said that Board of Education members use their identity badge, whatever you want to call those things. I think that statement needs to be in there.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're wearing 2 badges.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the visitor's badge is usually just a paper thing, so it's. But and Ms. Porter said that she has a regular badge that she uses, right?
Well, what, for example?
Regular badge?
No, well, I have my school district ID badge, our BOE badge that we have. So when I go someplace, if I have that, I wear that. If I forget it, I take the visitor's badge. But I've never had a problem with wearing my ID badge. That's been adequate for everything.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm suggesting that the change ought to be made, that a statement needs to be in there that says the BOE's identification badge is sufficient for them. Something to that effect.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Mr. Mosher, go ahead.
yeah, for all practical purposes, our BOE badge is quite sufficient because it does have our picture on it, and it identifies us as being a member of the Board of Education. So we really don't need the other thing that turn on, so we don't need to go around with two badges. The one should be enough. And as far as I'm concerned, I only need the one, and that tells the whole story that it's me and nobody else.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
So I was going to suggest in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph where it says visitors will be provided with a visitor's badge at that time, to add a sentence that says BOE members can use their school identification badge.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Does anybody have any objections to that on the board?
No.
Not for me.
Okay, Ms. Timmons?
I have two suggestions, and I don't know how well they're going to be received. But on the second paragraph, for the purpose of this policy, visitors should be defined as anyone who is not an employee of the district and/or assigned employees or student of that building, i.e. volunteers, parents, and other building personnel. I like to say including on board the BOE members.
Okay.
Including what?
Including
The
Board of
members.
Education members. A visitor is defined as a Board of Education member is defined as a visitor. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Porter.
I think when it says a visitor is anyone who's not an employee of the district, that would cover board members because we're not employees of the district.
Yes, she's correct, but some people think we are. That's why, to make it clear, we should put BOE members.
Okay.
We had that conversation before. We are not employed by the city, we are elected officials. But some people think that we are employed. So I think we should have that in, even though it's an understood you, but I believe that to put that in there wouldn't hurt.
Mr. Mosher, do you think we should define, do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's fine. Any way they want to put it, as long as it says that BOE members. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yep, I don't mind that.
Okay, so we could add that in there.
Right. Thank you. And one other thing, on KI, visitors must sign in the principal office or security and will be required to show identification, because may required to show identification to me, meaning if you don't have it, it's okay. So I don't think anyone should go into the school without some form of identification.
Okay. Ms. Porter?
So just thinking of an elementary school, if I'm a volunteer who goes there every week, do I still need to show my ID each time I go?
Yes.
That's fine, I'm just asking. I'm just, because there are a number of people who go to school on a very regular basis, daily, weekly. So I'm just wondering, if you're saying that they will be required, that can be a lot of people going in and out.
But once you volunteer at a school, they will kind of know you. So I know it says will. It's like when you go to the bank, you always show your identification at the bank.
Right.
But if the teller know you, you don't have to really show your
I think
identification.
well,
No, when you go to the bank and they know you,
They still ask me.
They don't ask me because I'm there.
But that's, I mean, if you're, I think maybe that's why it said May. But
I think it's important that we have identification whenever someone is in the school. And the purpose of that is for safety reasons as well. We may believe somebody's in the school and we don't know for a fact. I think
Right.
we're required to show identification.
I think that's, oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Ms. Porter, finish your thought.
It's just going to have, I just want to be aware that then that's going to mean a lot of extra work for secretaries who are already in charge of a lot of security things. They're monitoring cameras. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I just want to acknowledge that that change by requiring all people who come into school, even if they're people who come on a daily basis, is just another thing for secretaries to do. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I want to acknowledge that's going to be extra for them.
Having said that, doesn't the students wear their identifications every day?
Not in elementary
They
school.
don't. Not in elementary, but in high school they do, but not in elementary. Okay, so if they come into the school, they just show their little ID. There's no extra work. I can't see where there's extra work when you coming in and Susan Porter come in. I know Susan Porter. Susan Porter hold up her identification and off she goes.
Okay.
I don't see where that's a lot of work.
Well, it's a very busy place in an office, that's all.
He just, I agree. I
Okay,
agree.
no, that's fine.
Okay, I'm just
Yep. Ms.
thinking of safety, that's all.
Ms. Van Twyver, you had,
Yeah,
and then Mr.
I
Mosher.
agree with Susan. The word may does not make it mandatory, and there are a lot of people that come and go as visitors that you know them, but you don't have to have an ID to show them. Like if I came, they know me, they won't ask me for an ID because they know me. I mean, you just, but this alerts people that they are may be required to show them if they're not recognized. And the word may and shall makes it mandatory. May says it's potential. So I think you ought to leave it the way it is. Otherwise, are you going to hold a secretary responsible because she's got a long line at the desk and she's asking everybody for their ID? I don't think so.
Mr. Mosher, you had something to weigh in on this?
Yes, we have to follow protocol. It's a policy, and who knows? Maybe the woman at the desk is a substitute, and she may not know you. Maybe she's seen you someplace before, maybe in Market Basket or in the central office, but that don't mean you don't have to show identification. And I would be proud to show my badge and be allowed to go into the school. So it's protocol. Do it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, go ahead, Ms. Porter.
Okay, I'm not against this. I'm just, as I'm sitting here thinking of being in an elementary school, let's say it's just going to change. It's going to have a big impact on the way things are done. So say there's a field trip and you have 15 parents coming in who've been, like the teacher knows who they are, they're coming in. So sometimes the bus will leave like right 5 minutes after the bell. So you're going to have a line of kids getting ready and you're going to have all these parents. Somebody's going to have to come out and check all of the IDs, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. But I just want to be on the record for showing that just that one word change is going to have a big implication on how, and I can only speak for elementary school, and how that elementary school office is going to work. Because if you have a security office and everybody's coming through, that security office is in charge of checking everything. So there's like a dedicated place that does that, and an elementary school doesn't work that way. So I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, and I don't know if this is something we could come back to that would be part of our larger safety discussion that we we have those safety discussions pretty regularly. So I don't know if that's something that we should decide apart from that larger discussion. Just saying.
Okay. So what we could do is we could take a vote unless someone has more to add. Okay.
I do have one thing to
Go ahead.
add.
Go ahead, Ms. Timmons.
The reason why it doesn't take a lot to show, that's it, seconds to show a badge, just to show that you, they're not scrutinizing badges, checking it, just to see if you match that badge. I don't see a big difference in that, just don't. But you may have a point, you may have a valid point. I just don't see having a form of identification when you come to a school should be a mandatory thing, because everybody don't know who you are. And if you are in the building, I'm going to assume that your identification has been checked. That's why. Okay. Well,
I think I'm gonna take a vote on this. Okay, on the motion to add, shall be required to show identification, Ms. Van Twyver?
No.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
yes.
I'm gonna abstain. The vote carries 2 to 1.
Clarification,
Yes,
is the word shall or will that we just voted on?
I think it was
Will.
will.
Okay,
I apologize. Will be required, not
Okay.
shall.
okay.
Okay, so,
Excuse me.
yep.
What was that you just said?
That we voted to change the word may to will be required to show identification.
Oh, you're going to have trouble with that. I'm telling you.
Okay, what's the problem, Ms. Van Twyver?
I believe I explained that.
Okay.
Shall,
If you're going to require everyone that comes through that door to show an ID, you're going to have a long line at the main office for people. I mean, I think that you need to talk to some of those secretaries and find out whether that would be a wise thing to do. I do not believe it would be. Besides, anybody, if you get past the front desk, then with a visitor's badge, then anybody else shouldn't need to see a ID. The people in the front office are the ones that should be the gatekeepers here, and if they don't know you and they ask to see an ID, then the people have to give it. But I wouldn't make it mandatory.
okay, thank you. So we took the vote. It was 2 to 1 to change it to will right now. So we have 3 changes to policy KI,
And it still has to go to the full board.
and it still has to go. So do we need a motion to recommend that that KI goes to the full board? Would someone
I
like?
move to accept the changes, the 2 amendments to this document, and send it to the full board.
There's 3.
We have 3 changes.
Well, the 3 changes.
You want me to review what the 3 changes are?
Sure.
Okay. The 3 changes that we discussed was in the second paragraph under people that are defined as visitors, we added at the end and BOE members. The 4th paragraph, you just voted to change may be to will, and then after the sentence, visitors will be provided a visitor's badge at that time, the sentence BOE members may use their school identification badge has been added.
Okay. All right, so
I second.
seconded by Ms. Timmons. Okay. On the motion to accept the 3 changes and send KI to the full board, Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes?
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
I'm confused. You said 2 changes. It's
3.
3 changes.
Okay.
Did I say 2? I'm sorry, 3.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Okay, yes.
Yes, okay. The motion carries.
Can I step in on that?
Excuse me, wait a minute. Our voting thing here is, we've got an extra vote. Are you voting, Mr. Garino?
Well, I'm not refraining from voting because of the situation where I want you to participate, but the rules say that you have to be here in person in order to have a quorum. We have a quorum, but we have an extra person too. So
Yes, but
you and
the
Mr. Mosher,
voting
so-
people, the people on the phone have the vote.
That's what I've been doing, yes.
Yes, well, you're the third person on the committee.
Well, then I abstain. And I'll still give you the vote to,
Let me just ask you, are you implying because I'm the alternate that I don't vote? I'm just asking a question, Ms. Van
I think
Twyver.
she's saying the opposite. that-
You're there you are there to make the quorum,
Mm-hmm.
but we have 3 voting regular members here, so
Okay,
I
so,
don't believe you have the right to vote.
okay. All right.
She said you don't have the right to
I
vote?
don't have the right to vote.
Well, I'm the chair, I think you do, as an alternate, so. no?
Yeah, hey, listen, I got something to say here.
Go ahead, Mr. Mosher.
You know, if we have 3 regular members in the committee, and anybody that is not a part of the committee cannot vote. So if you have 2 members, that makes a quorum, even though the chair has abstained. So the 2 members are a quorum, and if one of them is the alternate is can vote because she is a regular member of the committee. However, one of the regular committees may be absent because of some extraneous reason. Do I make
I
myself?
disagree with you, Mr. Mosher.
Well-
but whatever.
Well, I
I'm
think,
just going to abstain from voting this time and then,
no, because in the past practice has been that alternates have voted.
only when there was no,
Only when there's a missing regular member.
yes, I agree
Right.
with that.
Right, I understand that, but that doesn't, no one said they couldn't vote. I mean, it's not written that they can't vote, just because the other members are here by telephone,
No, that has nothing to do with it.
so.
Go ahead, continue.
You know,
Hard to convince you of many proper things, but go
I
ahead.
think it's perfectly clear. If you have 2 of the regular members that are available, whether it's by telephone or not, one of them may be the alternative, and you have the chair. Now, that would make 3 members of the committee. However, if you have somebody else who is a member of the board but is not a member of the committee, that vote is not counted because it is not an alternative, and even though it's a member of the committee, they can't vote. They can offer their opinions, they can help make amendments, they can do anything else but voting, no.
Okay, I
If
think that's
the
what
chair is abstaining, that's okay, as long as you have 2 regular members, whether by telephone or not, that are voting members. They are the quorum.
Okay.
Okay, Elizabeth just said that. Right, Elizabeth? I'm sorry, Ms. Van Twyver. You just said that. Okay, I've sustained from voting. I'm just here. I'll just, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I just want to find out the policy that we just voted to send forward to the full board, is that vote still valid?
yes.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is, we have to rescind school visits. We have to rescind policy 11110. Yes,
Okay, I move that we rescind that policy.
okay,
Second,
okay. One, zero, okay. On the motion to rescind, Ms. Van Twyver,
yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and I will be voting, so I'll be the third vote. I will vote yes. So, motion carries 3-0. All right, now we can move to proposed JHC, student release precautions. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Again, this is a policy that we worked on when Ms. Raymond was still the chair of the policy committee. And you'll notice at the top that rather than dismissal from school, it's student release precautions because it's a little bit different. When you're releasing a student, it can be at any time during the day. Much of the information is the same as the one that we're hoping to rescind. What's been added in is that paragraph at the bottom. Parents or guardians must notify the school in advance of any change to a student's normal dismissal routine. If a parent or guardian requests any persons not previously designated for pickup to pick up their child, that individual must show the office personnel spelled wrong, identification. The reason this came about is because a student at one of the elementary schools was released to someone and the parents were not aware of it. So this is a safety precaution we're putting in place to make sure students are protected and that parents know who they're going home with.
Okay, thank you.
Comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Mosher.
And that last paragraph, that word is personal, not personnel.
I know.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we're going to fix that. Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Ms. Van Twyver, do you have any comments?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. Ms. Timmons?
No, it's fine.
All right, so in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve JHC as change, as amended.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Okay, on the vote, Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Okay, and I will vote yes, so the motion carries 3-0. All right, so next we are going to look at, there's a rescinding 3241, is that correct? Yep. All right.
Correct.
This is the old policy regarding dismissal from school. Does anybody have any motions to make or?
Yeah, we moved that it be rescinded.
Okay,
3241.
okay,
Second.
okay. On the motion to rescind, Ms. Van Twyver,
Yep.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. The motion carries 3-0. Okay, now we're going to the next one, which is JLF, Child Abuse and Neglect. Ms. Fitzpatrick, go ahead.
In speaking with Ms. Timmons, there was a miscommunication, and this actually got sent back to Human Resources to look at. And so because it had gone back to Human Resources to look at some of the language around the law, the Department of Education Code of Ethics, I think that we probably need to table it until we hear from HR.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I think it's right. HR ought to look at this if they haven't already. A lot of it's been struck, so.
Okay. Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I think that that's a good idea. This is, gets tied up in some legal language here. I think we should have the Human Resources look at the policy JLF and JLFR and see if they match up and that it's okay to process.
Go ahead, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
I just want to point out that JLFR-R is actually the form that we are currently using in the school district. So we were submitting it as a reference for the policy, but this is the form we're using.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that we should still have it looked at and make sure that it matches up with the language in JLF.
Okay, so do we table this, or do we just have no action and let it go to?
Send it back to the HR committee.
Okay, all right,
Very
so, okay. So I'll make a motion to send it to the HR committee. Mr. Mosher, on the motion to send it to the HR committee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Second and yes.
Okay. And I vote yes. So 3-0, the motion carries. Okay. So that brings us to, yes, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
4400 is the current policy we have for child abuse and neglect, so we can't really rescind it until we deal with the other one. But I do want to point out that it is really outdated, and some of the language is not keeping with current law,
Right.
just to point that out.
Okay. And the state law will overrule it anyways,
Yes.
so. Okay. So that, we will move on to the next one, which is proposed ILAA, elementary level grouping philosophy.
This was also on the agenda for last time, and I had it looked at by elementary level, and nothing has changed except we went from numbers to letters. That's the only change.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver, do you have any comments on the elementary level grouping philosophy?
So leveling is active in our district, is that correct?
This is,
And do all the schools agree to it?
Go ahead, Ms.
this is the elementary level grouping philosophy. This is not middle school, so this is specifically for the elementary, and the language hasn't changed at all. It talks about flexible grouping and what flexible grouping is, which is currently what elementary teachers are doing. So there's no change in practice in terms of this elementary grouping philosophy. The only change is from numbers to letters.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just want to know if every school participates in this practice of leveling.
You were an elementary
Does
teacher.
everybody agree with this? That they, I mean, just because we have this policy doesn't mean that people invoke it.
Ms. Porter?
I'm not sure what you mean, Ms. Van Twyver. Can you explain that to me again, please?
Well, here's this policy where children are grouped together by their abilities, correct? And does school A do it and school B not do it? Or is it a practice throughout the district and the elementary schools?
So an elementary school is a heterogeneous group, a classroom, and within that classroom, children are flexibly grouped, and I guess the flexible means it's not something that you stay in permanently. That changes depending on what the subject is, what the particular lesson is. And, you know, reading this policy here, that can happen within one teacher's classroom. It can happen within the grade level. Say there are 3 classes, you can kind of distribute kids that way. If you have a kid who is going to a higher grade, it says in here that can happen. So in an elementary school, it's very flexible. So it's depending on test scores, subject, students' interest, and that, I believe, is happening in every classroom in elementary school as far as I've ever been aware.
Ms.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Van Twyver?
Well, that's, I guess.
Ms.
It seems to me that,
Yep.
that there are many things that we hear about that are not practiced throughout the district. for like elementary things. Like we had behavior modification that was different in every middle school. And I just wanted to know, is this policy being used and invoked in every elementary school in our district? That's what I would like to know.
I think it is.
To the best of my knowledge, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I've never heard of it not.
right. Mr. Mosher, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm satisfied with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that each elementary school teacher has this flexible grouping, so some of them are able to, as it says here, cluster kids or group kids with the same ability and give them a certain level and another, say that's a third grade, and then it might be another third grade where, that it doesn't happen so much because of the situation. So it's adaptable. This is a flexible philosophy which allows the teachers to adapt to what they have, the situation in their classroom. Is that correct, Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Yes, and as Ms. Porter said, they may be in one group for reading, and another group for math, and another group for social studies, so it's flexible, so students can be grouped based on their strengths. But it's not traditional leveling, because all the students are within one classroom. It's a heterogeneous group classroom.
Right, but they can go to the classroom next door, or they can, so I think that this gives teachers the flexibility to do what's best for kids on a day-to-day basis.
I agree.
Do I have, are the members of this committee satisfied with moving this this policy to the full board? It's just, the only change is going to be from the number of the policy. It's not going to be numbered anymore. It's going to be ILAA.
I move to approve the lettering of this policy and to bring it forth to the full board as it has been reviewed and there are no changes.
Give me
Okay.
a second.
I'll second. Okay, on the motion to approve the changing of the letter, the changing of the policy from numbers to letters, and move to the full board as reviewed with no changes to the policy. Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I'm
Ms.
very happy with the thing.
Yep. Ms.
Changing the letters, that's all.
Okay, Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Motion carries 3-0. And that means we would have to rescind policy 2231.
I move to rescind policy 2231.
Okay,
I second it.
2230,
I have 2231.
So do I.
2231.
That, you're looking at middle level.
Yep.
Okay, you're right.
And 2231.
That's right.
Okay, and you seconded it, Mr. Mosher?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, so on the motion to rescind 2231, Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. The motion carries 3-0. Okay. Now we have, the next one is ILAB, Middle Level Education Policy. Ms. Fitzpatrick?
As folks that were involved in the last policy meeting know, there was a lot of impassioned folks here in the audience talking about all the different things. There was a lot of misinformation about what flexible grouping is, and because of that, there has been a change in the 6th paragraph that says that flexible grouping for students, of students for instructional purposes, including where appropriate, ability grouping. Ability grouping is a much nicer way of saying levels. And so it is showing that it's allowing teachers to group students in a way that is going to best serve the needs of students. And if that means that, for example, they do ability grouping when they're doing Algebra 1, they're doing ability grouping when they're doing world language in middle school because there's prerequisites for that. So there are areas in middle school where leveling is appropriate. This policy is saying it's not appropriate across the board. And if somebody's an honors English student, doesn't necessarily mean that they're an Algebra 1 math student, doesn't necessarily mean they're in the highest group for social studies, and that those students don't travel as a group all day in all of those classes because that may not be addressing their academic needs in each of the areas. So flexible grouping allows for grouping kids to play to their strengths and also to give them supports in the areas where they need it more. So the language in there has addressed people's concerns about ability grouping.
Mr. Mosher,
Yeah.
do you have any comments or questions?
No, not really.
Okay.
My only comment was that I agree with it because I remember being in school and, we had various groups that were better in one thing or not the other. And one of my strengths was in my social studies, and but I needed extra help in math. But other things I was really doing very well in, but my scores were high otherwise. So I agree with this that they let them be taught according to their ability and they put in a proper group.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yeah, I just have a question. From the previous talk, this means that a student who is in one group could be in a class, in another class's group? Is that right? Did I understand that?
So in middle school,
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to try to answer.
Did you want her to answer that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So in middle school, they work in teams, and I can give an example right now of a team of teachers that are working simultaneously with two different groups of math students. And the way the flexible grouping works in that situation is that instead of having students with special education needs all clumped into one class, which technically is illegal anyways, they're divided between the two classes, and the special education support person goes back and forth between the two classes. Those students are being raised to a higher level of expectation. They're learning more independence, and they're working in a classroom with their peers. That's an example of where maybe they would be with a different group of students, but they'd still be with students on their team. It's also a better use of resources, which...
Yeah, I'd like to see that in action sometime. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gary Hoffman is here. I'm going to ask the members of this committee if you want you allow him to say something to this committee. Do you have any objections to that?
No, you don't have to. He can speak.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure, I can speak.
Go ahead.
Gary Hoffman, 38 Perham Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. I was under the impression this policy was going to be pulled. We can talk about the merits of it later, but there's violations to Article 8 of the Nashua teachers union collective bargaining agreement. We'll be discussing that tomorrow. So I would ask, so that we don't have to redo this policy in a later meeting, that we just table this indefinitely for now and let us come back with something that once the unions work this out. Thank you.
So am I to understand the NTU wants to delay this for some reason?
Yeah,
Rewrite?
it's a violation to Article 8, but I'm not sure how that is.
Violation of what?
Article 8 of the teacher's contract.
Article 8. Thank you. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Well, then I move to table this.
Mr. Mosher, how do you feel about tabling it or moving it on, or?
Well, I don't have the copy of the teachers' agreement with me at the moment, but if it's necessary to do that, I'd say, okay, let's do it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going, go ahead, Ms. Van Twyver.
I did not hear a second.
Did you want to second it, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
I'm a little unclear as to how the elementary grouping philosophy, which is very similar to the middle school one, is not a violation of the contract, but the middle school proposed one is a violation of the contract. I'll be interested to hear that rationalization. Thank you.
I'll wait until tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm going to take a vote to table the ILAB. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
I will make it unanimous, okay? Motion is tabled, 3-0. Okay.
I did have one,
The
2230.
middle level education policy rescinded, we should probably leave in place, right? Okay.
Yes. I think that we should put a note in with that tabling to say that is tabled because of a possible conflict with teachers' contract, Article 8.
I have it, I'm writing it down right now. Because of
Very-
conflict, Article 8 of teacher's contract. Okay. I've got it.
Very good. You're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. So that leaves us to the end of our agenda. And unless anyone else has any comments or anything else to say, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Okay. Okay, on the motion to adjourn, Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. We are adjourned at 7:30 p.m. Thank you very much, Ms. Van Twyver. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Mosher, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And have